My brothers and sisters, on this day, my heart breaks as I consider the cruel ways we treat one another in this country. But let me be very clear. It is not a general cruelty that I'm speaking of. It is a very focused cruelty that targets people of color and African American boys and men the most. It is a cruelty that comes from a long history of racism in the US, from days of legal slavery to modern day slavery that expresses itself in many ways, including the incarceration of so many men and boys of color that entire communities are robbed of the physical presence of husbands, sons, and brothers. It is expressed through the economic injustice that perpetuates the poverty of an inordinate number of African American families who are trapped without any true way out. And for too long, we see it in the accepted norm of lynching, murdering African American boys and men just because they're Black. Enough is enough. We need to question who we are as a nation. The fact that in 2020, these cruel things continue to happen systematically, institutionally, and only superficially challenged is a clear indication of how sick we are in this country. As people of faith, I believe we carry a particular responsibility for this sickness. We cannot preach and teach that every single person is a child of God, a beloved of God, and then be silent or only minimally vocal about the corrupt and sinful state of affairs. The latest name of a person and family who have been afflicted by this corruption and sin is Floyd, George Floyd, the Floyd family. George Floyd recently murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is only the latest Black brother to be murdered. The list is long. The protest across the country is growing louder, but we've been here before. A few days, weeks, perhaps of protest, and then we're back to our awful normal of no change in our attitude or our way of being. So all we can expect is that it will happen again. Some of you may be showing up for the protest tonight in Oakland. We have a right to protest publicly, to stand against injustice. I extend to you my blessing. You have a right to protest, stand for all of us. But I would ask you to stand safely in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. I would encourage you to raise high your voices for God's justice for the family and community neighbors of George Floyd and every person our brother George represents in this moment. But I would also ask you not to turn to violence. Violence only breeds violence. We must practice non-violence. We don't need any more violence, but we do need justice. I want to invite you to consider all the ways that you and I need to be engaged to bring an end to cruelty, to violence, and death due to the hate of the other. This violence that is destroying families, communities, and this very country. Here is one thing I want to recommend to all of us. I want to recommend that we sit with our children of every age that together we see a news report or many of the murder of George Floyd. Tell your children that a police officer who was supposed to protect him from harm and treat him justly murdered him. And then tell your children that this was a crime, so very wrong, so very unacceptable, and not what we do or accept as people of Christian faith. It's not what we do or accept as United Methodists. Some of you may be saying, well, shouldn't we wait till the legal system determines whether this police officer was guilty or not? Friends, I would respond saying to you that the evidence is clear for all to see. And if we doubt that, count it as a warning that we have become comfortable, apathetic in seeing African American men and boys murdered in the public square. If this is a difficult conversation for you, I commend to you the resources of the General Commission on Religion and Race of the United Methodist Church. On this day, I pledge to you to pray for all of us, to lead us in the deeper conversation about our sin of racism, and to examine my own life so that I may know how I am to be a spiritual leader, the spiritual leader that God is calling me to be in the midst of these days of the affliction of a virus that is killing us and the affliction of the racism that is killing particularly men and boys of color and surely killing our soul and the future of this country and the future of our church. God be merciful unto us.